Yo, what it do, everybody? Had me an interesting morning. For those who don't know me, I'm Paul Gaspard. I look like a hot mess with gray hair, so forgive me for that. But anyway, yeah, I had a very interesting morning. I was supposed to go for an interview, which I did, but it was interesting because it was snowing and cold. And then I wasn't allotted out this morning, and yeah, daily, daily crazy stuff, I guess you would say. But somehow on the way there, I was well reminded that God was with me because I was listening to Christian music halfway over there and then started praying and begging for answers for numerous things. And then one question that I had answered, I got a big response back. Don't mind the food on my mouth. I forgot about that. Uh, anyway, the main question I asked them and prayed and begged for the answers for was who am I and what my responsibilities are and what my purpose is for being here on this earth today and why I'm still here. Yes, I had a lot of stuff going on, so it sounds kind of deep, but not to worry, no crazy thoughts or none of that. Anyway, I started thinking to myself after I asked that question, and this weird thing went over me about faith, and I always talk about faith with everybody that I'm a man of faith, and I believe and have faith in a lot of stuff, and somehow that ran through my head after I prayed for the answers and begged them in tears. Because I have a lot going on, and yeah, life right now, as we know, is overwhelming itself. So this also ties into exactly why this video is being made, because everyone shares this, and I think, honestly, out of belief and from what I feel with God's presence, I think 90% of this world, or 93 at least percent, share all of this same scenario in which I'm about to give. But for a quick moment, this is what actually happened. I was on my way. I started crying, and something came over me. And as we know, it's God's Spirit, obviously, but in a good way, because thank God we're still here and alive, living a life that's not ours to begin with, and His. And we're just meant here to succeed and go through all the trials. And one thing that popped as an answer was faith. No matter how bad my situation gets, how low I've gotten so far, without resources, income, and all that stuff, I still found myself having faith that things were going to be okay, and I was still believing. And so the more I started thinking about it of myself with faith, I started feeling God's presence a lot more stronger. So I finally got an answer for why I'm still here. Uh, I believe, honestly, with God's presence and out of His eyes, that I'm still here as proof of faith, that faith will get you anywhere as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in this life and whatever purpose you got. And no one rides the same journey, obviously, and usually everyone's journey is their own journey. As we know, we can't tell each other, oh yeah, you can do this for your journey, it'll fix your problems. No. Everyone has their own journey, whether you're married or not. As your own person, you have a journey that no one else can fill. And that's a good answer, because I don't know where I got that from just now. But it does make sense, because no matter what you go through, trials, feelings, and stuff like that, no matter how many people you go to over opportunities or any type of opportunity, job related, work related, home related, stuff like that, no one can fill up for what you hurt for. And even your loved one, she may understand what you're coming from and she may listen, but she will never have the actual answer for you to overcome what you feel, because that is part of your journey that God has set for you. which explains a lot for me, because there's a lot of things I would go for my spouse with, and she may understand and listen, and she'll give me every answer she can to help me, but those answers do not take that void. Those answers that we need, I started to realize that it's not someone can answer you or give you an option or an idea or an opinion on, because those opinions may not be right with God. God wants you to do it the right way, so therefore, no matter what struggle you're in, God puts us through these struggles for us to lean on Him. When we're doing so great or whatever, He can take it all away if He feels that we're not on point with Him. And just because we got blessed or whatever, we start thinking, well, oh, we got this, and we lose focus and sight on God. So, surprisingly, that's coming out my mouth. And I've prayed millions of times today, so I know that Lord is giving me answers even while making this video. So for whoever's looking at this video, this might be a video for you, or might be for the world, period, in general. Either Christians of all kinds, or people who don't believe, or people who are misled and want to believe again, or people with doubt, period, or anybody. It don't matter. Christian, non-Christian. Anyway, that was my crazy morning. It was snowing, cold. I was kind of doubting all morning, and I started praying, and like I said, overcame with this good feeling out of nowhere, and I started praying, crying. Obviously, I'm not going to sit there and say I didn't, because I'd be lying, and I can't lie, especially with God in this situation. Like I said, I asked what my purpose was, why I'm still able to make it, but yet why am I still down about myself? Why am I still having doubts? And I got my answers. Basically, what was going through my head, like I said, I remember all the time how I tell people, oh, I believe and have faith that you can make it off of nothing. Or I used to be, when I was younger, I used to make the impossible possible. I had a lot of witnesses for that. Didn't matter what I did, it became possible. And people would look at me like, man, that's impossible. How'd you do that? Well, deep down, I still believed. My inner childhood, we did go to church. But doesn't necessarily mean we're saved just because we went to church as kids. But I still think, as an adult, you still hold on to things that you may not remember, but your inner child remembers. So you have a bit of faith and belief still to keep you going, and to try to remember the things you were taught long ago. Or maybe you were taught, but you want to make sure that it's the right teaching, so you want to challenge it. And the best challenge is go before God and ask Him, because there ain't going to be, no one else is going to challenge that for you except for God. Because once you start getting doubt or whatever, you start asking Him, you might not get an answer right off the bat. God don't even have to explain it to you, because eventually He puts it in your mind to start remembering things, like me today about faith. And I have a lot of faith. More faith than I've ever had before. And today just topped it off, so I feel a lot more stronger about it. So when I got my answer, I started thinking about, like I said, faith. I'm a man of faith. I've always ran by it. Like these last few situations I've came across so far in the last 2 months, I was on the verge of losing everything. Still on the verge of losing everything, but somehow God is pulling through. And it's not me, now that I'm starting to think about it. You started thinking that way because I started pulling and taking things, not like stealing or nothing. So, well, it is stealing, but not stealing as in actually stealing in this world. Something different. But I would make resources, put resources there, because I was getting impatient. And yeah, my bills are due, past due probably almost. And I'm still having to wait. But as most people know, I'm a very impatient person. So if I can't get it done right then and there, I usually try to find ways to make it work. But a lot of the time, which I blinded myself over because of that, I'm taking things and making things there and putting things there that probably aren't mine and that were meant for other people. So I'm basically, in God's eyes, stealing from his blessings and putting them into my own resources, when these blessings probably could save someone else's life, or maybe God had wanted to use those blessings for someone else to go before him and to come back home to him. You know what I mean? Anyway, this is crazy because I was just, as soon as I got home, I can't explain the feeling, like this whole peaceful feeling, and I just sat down and out of nowhere I just wanted to grab my Bible journal and my Bible, and I just opened up the book, and the one thing that hit me was this verse, because this verse, honestly, we all deal with this verse. I've been dealing with this verse for I don't know how long, until once I realized what that verse was saying. That's exactly what I've been doing in the last year. And trust me, this whole year's been down and out. Like, I'm not saying up and down, it's just been going down. Because I have, like, literally my income was poor at this moment. But God's making it possible. Anyway, it also made me feel like I was putting my own story, adding my own story into the Bible before our time is done, which we all know that there's going to be no more time after that. But it was crazy because when I started writing it, I started feeling like my vision switched to like if I was writing in the Bible myself, my own story, part of it, not all of it. But this is what I wanted to share with y'all and the whole purpose of this video. And I think, honestly, like I said, I would say about, honestly, 89 to 94% of this world actually has been going through this, because I know I've been doing it for the last year already. And it just made me understand myself more on why I was putting things there and they were getting taken quicker than I could put them there. So then it made it harder than what it was before. So anyway, let's get to this. Again, my name is Paul. For the ones who don't know, little shy, cam shy, whatever you want to call it. That's why I don't stare into the camera too much. And I'm red. I have my wife here. Trying not to be not embarrassed. There's another word for that. Nervous. Because she's also watching while I'm trying to do this video. Anyway, again, my name is Paul, and this, I actually feel like a lot of people should share whatever. I mean, it means to me more with God than it does if anyone dislikes it, or God's opinion matters more, obviously. Anyway, I felt like this was something that needs to be shared, and obviously it deals with part of my story right now as we know it. Anyway, this is the verse I came home to when I just randomly opened the Bible. It was in Chronicles 28, chapter 22. Chapter 28, verse 22. It said, and at the time that he was oppressed, he increased in unfaithfulness against the Lord. Now, a lot of people don't understand what oppressed means. I mean, the best explanation I could think of, because one word ties into that, and I had to explain it to my wife, even though I felt like I wasn't going to give her a good explanation on it. So I tied it around. Instead of oppressed, I used the word depressed. So what does depressed relate to oppressed? Depressed is a lot in common with oppressed, because oppressed is like you're compressing yourself down. You're holding yourself down with a lot of negativity. Say, if you're suicide, I don't want to use that, but I mean, it's part of an example. You're pressing yourself down, basically. You keep yourself shackled up into what's actually going on and tying yourself down to how you feel versus trying to overcome the situation and go into somebody, which obviously the only answers you'll ever get right are the ones with God, and you have to actually ask Him. You may not get them right off the bat, but God puts it in your mind that, you know, He puts it in your mind for you to understand and maybe use your own words, even though your words don't make sense to other people, but your words make sense to you. I have that problem all the time, obviously, and I get laughed at by my wife. But hey, to each his own. And she's lovely and beautiful as always. And I love her. We have our ups and downs, but you know what? With my faith, I believe that we're overcoming even at the time we share right now, because, yeah, like I said, everyone has their ups and downs, and that's part of life. And trials and tribulations that ties all in. Anyway, again, I'm going to read this verse. And at the time that he was oppressed, he increased in unfaithfulness against the Lord. Another thing that comes to mind when I read that the second time just now for y'all, you can oppress yourself so much with devastation, hurt, pain, your unwillingness to comply with life after falling down in a deep hole, knowing that you feel yourself that you can't get out of, and you feel like you can't wait for God because you feel like everything's at the deadline and life is more important than God. So guess what you're going to do? And this is what we all do naturally. So I don't want to hear, oh, you're right. Everyone does it naturally. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. Everyone does the same mistake. But God doesn't hold us to it as long as we correct ourselves in the manner that He expects us to. Because God is forgiving, and He's just. Now, if we continue to go astray and keep doing what we're doing, then guess what? We're going to be held under contempt, just like man-made law. And what's man-made law? When you're under contempt, you go to jail, obviously. But with God, it's different. No one knows, but I'm not about to try to make my understanding of it, because it will never make sense. Because I honestly don't know. Anyway, the oppressed part I just explained, just like depression, you're holding yourself accountable for your own feelings. You're holding yourself back from doing better or striving harder or moving forward because you're only focused on the stuff that you feel now, because that's the stuff you render or that you're in, that you hold, whether it's against a loved one, whether it's your spouse, whether it's life, whether it's kids, whether anything. Doesn't matter, because I had people I worked with, man, that, trust me, y'all don't want to be working with people I had to work with, especially this last year. Because trust me, it's hard to keep your mouth shut. And they keep pressing. So you have to have faith to keep your mouth shut and thank the Lord for those crazy people, because regardless if you know it or not, you do stuff when you're angry, and some stuff you can't do when you're not angry. So you learn a way to cope. And I'm really good at that because I have a lot of patience on that side of it when it comes to problems, but I don't have patience for when I need things done. Anyway, so that first part I just explained. Second part, I do believe when he says he increased in unfaithfulness against the Lord, I feel like he stopped trying to ask God, whoever this may be for, just like me. I put myself in it because I've been doing this for the last 2 years, and honestly, I barely started realizing today after my crazy morning about what that actually means. When you start being unfaithful to the Lord in the bad, it's like you're forgetting to pray. You're forgetting to ask Him questions. You're forgetting to rely on Him. So you start getting impatient, and you put your own resources, well, according to man, your own resources, and I use this daily because, yeah, I'm only human too, but that's not a good excuse as a Christian. So I actually prayed about that too, of my own fault. You put things there to fix the problem, and those things may not be yours. like part of this video, like I said, you're stealing. You're taking blessings away from other people that hadn't even received a blessing yet, and that could have saved their life or whatever. So when God's eye says the obvious, you're stealing. So what is stealing? Well, stealing is like a thief. What do you do when you steal in our world as a man? What do you do when someone goes to court for stealing? You get in trouble. But in my case, somehow I had a lot of consequences I had to deal with, which is the whole extra waiting, which I understand now why I have to wait, because I'm putting stuff there that aren't necessarily mine or something I wasn't supposed to have, probably. Not necessarily stealing as in stealing food or something or money or whatever. It's just, like I said, it's a whole nother spiritual thing. Anyway, that's the unfaithfulness that we all end up sharing. We end up in doubt. We end up forgetting that God is still there. Even if we are in the wrong, then we become more oppressed. And when we start feeling that unfaithfulness towards Him against our own will, then we start pushing ourselves away from God. And it's not God pushing away, it's us fearing God's wrath. God's, how do you explain that? God's way of showing us what is wrong and, the consequences. There you go. So, out of nowhere, I found myself writing this whole thing. I thought I was preaching at first, because some of this does sound like a preaching, and I never preached in my life. But I also realized that I was tying my own life into it. Well, at least not my whole life, but obviously in the last year. And till this day, this is what I've had to go through, and still am, obviously. But anyway, for those who aren't catching this video now, my name is Paul, and I'm about to read you the story that I felt like after reading and hearing my wife read, which actually touched her a lot, and she's probably not going to admit it. But to see her in her emotion after reading my story, which I feel like I honestly literally just wrote my own story and added myself into the Bible, which is crazy in a good way. And I can't explain it, but when I read it myself, I felt like I just put myself in the Bible. Like I finally got my story in the Bible, which obviously it ain't, because the Bible's sitting right next to me. And this is my journal. I'm not ashamed of my journal because it's a Christian journal, so everyone laughed just because everyone hears the word journal. But anyway, I'm going to read this, and hopefully it helps whoever listens, because honestly, I think we all share the same thing right now as we speak. Alright, I started this right here, so if you have your Bible, you want to look it up, look it up. I'd rather y'all look it up so you know I'm not just making this up or just getting it offline. It's Chronicles 28, chapter 22. And at the time that he was oppressed, which I just explained this verse, he increased in unfaithfulness against the Lord. And this is my story mixed with the way I understand it, and hopefully my understanding helps those who don't fully understand. And maybe they put their understanding in and get whatever God gives them out of this. But I added my life into it, including what's going on in the world today. So, to me, being oppressed in the world today, as we know, it becomes so easy to let go of all virtues and faith and in the Lord. Today we all struggle with living and supporting ourselves and families because of the things going on in the world today. The war, the taxes, the dispute amongst ourselves, loved ones, family, friends, and people in the world today. It makes you think, because this is how I honestly feel, and this is what I thought about all the time, makes it so easy just to turn to ourselves and say to ourselves, just to let go of everything and one, and to search for ways and things of the world to replace it all and put our own will and actions into play. Because I at times, faithfully, I'm going to say it, I at times feel impatient and rushful to making things right. And a lot of the time, God wants us to wait and pray about all this before we even try to do anything. Because if we do anything before Him, then guess what? We're obviously going to be in the wrong all the time. So we start to become impatient with Lord's works and blessings, which I do a lot sometimes. Most of the time, I don't know how to explain that. And I'm sure everyone does. And wow, that wasn't supposed to be there, but anyway, and provide ourselves with things and answers that may not be meant for us. May and maybe not meant for us. The provision we take may be meant for someone else to either save someone else's life or to help bring one of God's children to Him. So, as logic appears in this scenario, which I do agree with because this is me, obviously, we become thieves before God, taking blessings that don't belong to us. I've been in that situation countless times, but my eyes awaken to the light, realizing all I'm doing is putting things in my life that aren't mine to take or keep, just so I can keep moving forward and moving to the next oncoming situation. And I mean this. This is all me, you guys. This ain't no Bible verse. This is actually me with my story and what I think everyone should hear and think about, because I think this would save a lot of people. And trust me, those provisions are taken back a lot quicker than the time it took for me to take them for my situation. And the situation becomes more harder to overcome than what it was from the time it became a hard situation to begin with. And it does. No matter how much you take, those provisions that may not be yours and meant for someone else, they will be taken a whole lot quicker. And I have a lot of experience on that, because there's a lot of stuff I've been putting there left to right, trying to make things work, and so far everything's just getting worse. And it's being taken quicker. Like my job, I had pretty bad with my job. At first, it started out good for the first 2 months, and then from there, it was like my job was already leaving me before I had a chance to even see what was really going on, or if I did something wrong. And now I see what I did wrong in my story, and this is real and truth, obviously, and it even answers where I went wrong. So no matter how much I believed, trust, and had faith in the Lord, I knew deep down in which I blinded myself from in God's eyes. I just kept taking like a thief. Finally, when God opened my eyes, I saw the truth. But God didn't give up on me. He just reminded me to keep praying, keep my faith, and trust in Him. For He has always been working with me, and the only reason why I couldn't see was because I blinded myself and let all of these problems and situations consume me to the point to where I was showing unfaithfulness and untrusting to God. Today I heard my calling for the first time in my life. I spent countless time this morning and praying, asking about what my purpose is and who am I. Out of nowhere, it came to me, I'm a man of faith. This whole time I lived in faith, no matter how low down and bad my situation is, when all hope seems lost and things are so overwhelming, overbearing, I still believed God is there. I still believed He would help me after everything I've done, after everything I put myself through, after all the madness and anger and soreness I've given myself. Sorry, you guys, my voice is getting light because just me reading it still actually puts me in that situation still. And I feel, stop, cat. Sorry, my cat's going crazy. Anyway, it touches me just by reading my own story. Like, it makes me cry. And I feel ashamed over the decisions I've been making. Because I know that those weren't God's, it was just myself the whole entire time. Anyway, where was I? God let me know everything is okay. Let me know that He still loves me, and God reminded me of my purpose and showed me why I live so much in the struggle, because I live off of faith. I push forward with faith. My faith is God makes it possible. Oh, wow, I said that wrong. Anyway, it says faith, I push forward. I push forward with faith. My faith in God makes it possible. Live in the impossible. Struggle to get through with no provisions, no leads, no income, finances. All my faith leads me to God, to the King, the Creator, the Waymaker, and the Taker. I became the example of faith that all can make it when you have nothing. Have faith that God is there. Have faith that He loves you. Have faith that you'll be just fine. Have faith that God's rain will flood your valley. Bring sun to cast out the darkness so you may walk into the light once again and lift God's name and give Him praise for all of His glory and all of His mercifulness. For God's promise and word, He will soon come back. And that my job today is to tell the world all about Jesus. And I feel like this is the beginning of my story that He had given me this morning. So I hope this all helps everyone out, and God bless, and I pray for everybody, and I pray for myself, and thank God for everything. In Jesus' name, amen.